As the war continued, the M1 Garand became a symbol of Allied firepower and industrial dominance. It armed millions of men across Europe, the Pacific, and North Africa. The FG-42 remained rare, almost mythical, its influence spreading more through engineering circles than through battlefields. After the war, its design would inspire future weapons, including the American M60 machine gun and the German G3 rifle. Engineers around the world studied its features, understanding that the FG-42 had been a glimpse into the future of small arms. Meanwhile, the Garand evolved into the M14, and its design principles continued to shape military rifles for decades. In the end, the confrontation between the M1 Garand and the FG-42 was not just a meeting of two weapons, but of two ideologies. One was democratic, mass-produced, and efficient. The other elitist, complex, and visionary. Both were products of their nation's identities, and both changed the way soldiers fought. The men who carried them at Salerno could not have known they were witnessing the birth of modern infantry warfare. They only knew the weight of steel in their hands, the sound of their rifles, and the enemy before them. When the smoke cleared, the Garand continued its march across Europe, and the FG-42 faded into legend. But together, they marked the moment when the rifle became more than a tool of war. It became the embodiment of an age of innovation, and the soldier's eternal struggle for survival and supremacy. What followed was chaos turned into mastery, as disciplined precision met desperate aggression. The Japanese came in disorganized waves, many flying outdated or poorly maintained aircraft, lacking coordination and tactical awareness. The Hellcats tore through them with deadly efficiency, their 650 caliber machine guns spitting tracers that shredded aluminum and flames across the sky. Reports from American pilots told of entire Japanese squadrons erased within minutes. The sea below became littered with burning wreckage, parachutes, and oil slicks, while the carriers of Task Force 58 remained largely untouched. For every American lost, as many as 20 Japanese fell. The air was filled with smoke and fire as the Hellcats executed what became known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. By the end of the first massive engagement, more than 350 Japanese aircraft had been destroyed in the air, and another 50 lost on their carriers. When the Americans counterattacked later that evening, they sent waves of their own bombers and torpedo planes, escorted again by the tireless Hellcats, which dove into the fading light to finish the slaughter. Taiho, the pride of the Japanese fleet, was fatally hit by a torpedo from the submarine Albacore, its volatile fuel fumes eventually triggering a catastrophic explosion that sent it to the bottom. Shokoku met a similar fate after being struck multiple times by torpedoes from the submarine Kavala, and by nightfall, the once proud Japanese carrier arm was shattered. The victory was not merely tactical, it was strategic and symbolic. The Japanese had entered the battle with nearly 500 operational aircraft and ended it with fewer than 100 remaining. The Americans, by contrast, had lost only about 30 Hellcats and a handful of bombers. The disproportionate result stunned even the victors. Admiral Mitchell's report to command belied the magnitude of the triumph. The battle proved that Japan's naval air arm was effectively finished. It would never again mount a serious challenge to American dominance of the Pacific skies. The F6F Hellcat had proven itself not only as a fighter, but as a weapon of industrial and tactical supremacy. Built in thousands across American factories, it represented the relentless power of mass production and innovation. The Japanese could not replace their losses. Their training programs were in collapse, their carriers now floated half empty, or were turned into decoys, while the United States kept sending more ships, more planes, and more pilots trained with discipline, precision, and the spirit of relentless pursuit. In the months that followed, the American fleet advanced relentlessly through the Marianas, capturing Saipan, Tinian, and Guam, using their airfields as stepping stones toward the Japanese homeland. Every flight of B-29 bombers that later launched from those islands carried with it the echo of the Hellcats' victory on June 19, 1944. For it was that day that broke the back of Japanese air defense. The men who flew the Hellcats, many still in their early 20s, carried with them the confidence of a nation that had mastered both technology and strategy. They knew they had achieved something more than a battle. They had sealed the fate of the Pacific War and ensured that Japan's empire would never recover. The wreckage of that day drifted 4 weeks across the Philippine Sea, a floating graveyard of aircraft, oil, and memory. As the sun set on June 20th, the sky glowed with the fading light of a world in transformation. The old order of imperial dominance was dying, replaced by a new age of overwhelming American might. The F6F Hellcat, the unglamorous yet invincible guardian of the fleet, had become the symbol of this turning tide. It had faced Japan's finest and reduced it to ashes, not through luck, but through skill, technology, and an unbreakable industrial backbone. What began as a desperate attempt by Japan to halt the Allied advance ended as a catastrophic loss that crippled its ability to wage modern war in the air. From that moment onward, the Pacific belonged to the United States. Every island, every sky, every sea lane was now guarded by the thunder of American engines and the flash of machine gun fire from the wings of the Hellcat. June 19, 1944, would forever stand as the day when the balance of the Pacific War shifted irreversibly. A single day when 500 Hellcats dominated the skies and destroyed the very heart of Japan's Air Force, leaving behind not just wreckage, but the echoing certainty that victory for the Allies was now inevitable and unstoppable.